Well, hello. I'm trying to find my place. I'm Dean. Welcome to Sermons from the Cave. We'd like to invite you to send these videos out on YouTube to your friends and family that don't know the Lord. There's some really good ones that the Lord anointed that He wanted us to give that are just real simple gospel messages. So, please send some of these out. Send them around the world. Send them to your friends and neighbors. But we're in the book of Numbers. We're starting the book of Numbers. We kind of skipped the book of Leviticus, or we went really through. Maybe I'll come back to that in a week or so. But I want to start the book of Numbers. And basically what's happening is, before the nation of Israel is going to go into the promised land, God told Moses to number the people, to number them all. And he's going to do that for a reason. But he told him, he sent the spies into the land to spy out, who was there, and to look at what a great land it was, and to get them ready. But really, they're being disobedient by, when the spies come back, the report is a negative report. I mean, only two of them, Joshua and Caleb, say, hey, yeah, God's giving us this land flowing with milk and honey. Let's go. Let's go. But now I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but I want to set the stage for why Moses is numbering the people here. And this is before their desert wanderings. He's gonna have Moses number the people, and what's going to happen. I'm just going to give you an overview, basically, before we get to going into the promised land thing. But because God did all these huge miracles and liberated them from Egypt, and He just did so much for them. He parted the Red Sea and protected them from Pharaoh's army. He gave them water. He gave them manna, free bread when they were hungry. There's just so much going on in the wilderness. And what did they do? Well, they grumbled and complained. They said they wanted to go back into bondage. They wanted to go back to Egypt so they could have the leeks, the onions, the melons, the fish, all the things that they had been accustomed to in a life of luxury, other than the slavery part. They forgot about that. But they just grumbled and complained, and they didn't remember what God had done. And so, because they grumbled and complained, and they grumbled and complained about Moses, and Miriam and Aaron, Moses' sister and brother, complained about Moses. Why is he in charge? We're just as good as he is. And then the sons of Korah and Korath, and they all just were disobedient, and they weren't obedient to what God told them to do. They weren't respectful, and God was ticked. And He wanted to wipe them all out, and Moses would always intercede for him. So God's going to number the people at the very beginning, and He's going to number them before they go, and then they're going to wander for 40 years in the desert. They're just going to wander around, within an area that's about the size of a county in the United States, just a very, very small area of land. He's just going to make them wander, because remember, He gave them the cloud and the fire, the column of fire and the cloud, and He gave them shade during the day, and at nighttime this fiery column. And as long as it stopped and hovered over the tabernacle, they were, or in one place, they were to set up the tabernacle and then camp around that area. And they were going to do this until they wised up. But what happened is, this whole generation of people, because they were just grumblers and complainers, and they didn't have faith, God said, okay, fine, you're all going to die out here in the wilderness, but the next generation, if they love me and they follow me and they're obedient, I'm going to allow them to go into the promised land. So that's basically what the book of Numbers is about, the desert wanderings. And right here at the beginning, we're going to see God's going to have He's going to have them number all the tribes, the tribes of Israel, and He's going to tell them how he wants them to camp. And what's going to happen is God's going to stop. He had a cloud, a pillar of cloud, the Shekinah glory, and then this pillar of fire, and that could be seen at nighttime. And basically, what happened is when he stopped, the Levites, the priests, the Aaronic priesthood, and the Levites would set up the tabernacle, which was the tent of meeting, which is where God would show himself. His Shekinah glory would show himself. And this was to be the center of the camp. God always wants to be at the center of our lives. Even for us, in the New Testament, we're told that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. That once we become believers, we're sealed with the Holy Spirit. It says in Ephesians 1:13. And we become the temple. Actually, our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. But back then, God's Shekinah glory would dwell above the tabernacle. And then around the tabernacle, the Levites would camp in 4 directions. And then he told all the tribes, the 12 tribes, to camp three in one direction, east, the compass point, the points of the compass. 3 tribes would camp to the east, 3 to the south, 3 to the west, and 3 to the north, making up a total of 12 tribes. And they would camp the tabernacle, the fence around the tabernacle. It was a rectangle, and it was set up a certain way, and they could only camp as wide as the tabernacle was, and as tall as it was. They could only stay in those lines. They had to just keep camping as far out as you could see in all directions. And what's interesting is we're given the numbers for all those tribes. Judah was to camp to the east, and 2 other clans with them, with their banners. They had these poles with these flags on them that would indicate what tribes they were, and they all had animals on it, and or a man on it, or they all had a signature, a banner that would identify each tribe. But what's interesting is if you do the math that's in the book of Numbers, and you calculate it, and you scale it out with a draftsman's scale, and you draw it out to scale, what you find is that they were camping basically in the shape of a cross for 40 years out in the desert. Whenever the tabernacle would be set up, and they set up in the columns, front, back, side to side, compass points, they were making a cross. If you use the numbers given to you in the book of Numbers, chapter 1 and 2 and 3, you'll see that they were making a cross. Now, the reason we know that is because the other areas outside, the corners, like east, northwest, northeast, southeast, and southwest, those corners were common areas, and they were considered unclean. Now, this is the area that they would, use your imagination. This was the area when you're camping, when you have 2 million people camping, you need a large area where you can set up latrines and places to wash the dishes and places to bathe and all that. So these areas were called common areas, and they were, that was outside. That was considered outside the camp. These common areas. That's where they would put the dead. That's where they would bury the dead. That's where they would set up the latrines. So it's interesting that they had these common areas where they wouldn't camp, and they would camp around the shape of the tabernacle. And if you scale it out and you calculate it, given the numbers in the book of Numbers, they were making a giant cross for 40 years in the wilderness. That's amazing to me. That's all the time we have. Shalom, Mishpachah.